Hey everyone, so today we're gonna do some manifesting. I thought it'd be neat to make a little bit of a vlog about the process that I use. It's not my process, I didn't make it up, but it is the one that I follow, and I found it very effective. It's how I got my house sold, actually. I followed this process and it was like boom, 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 super effective. So that was cool. I have friends who've used it to like find a new living room set. She had like old janky couches that she didn't want anymore, and she was like, all right, I'm gonna manifest a new living room set, and it worked flawlessly. Other people have used it to like manifest money and all kinds of things. So I'm specifically working on a revenue goal for my business. I own my own company and I want to hit $100,000 consistently per month. Yes, month. By the end of September. You can set up any timeline you want. I do recommend not making the timeline too long though, because then I think it gets easy to just let it slide because you're like, I got time, you know? Whereas if you set a deadline it doesn't have to be super aggressive. Don't be like, okay, I wanna make $100,000 by next week. Like, okay. I mean, don't let me limit you. Maybe you could totally do that. I don't know. But might be challenging. Or you might get it, but it's like you get approved for like a bank loan for $100,000 and you're like, okay. I wasn't specific enough. You know, not to say that it can't happen. You could win the lottery. I don't know. Stuff happens all the time. Crazy things. I think having a somewhat aggressive deadline is really helpful because it just keeps you focused, right? It just keeps you on task and not wasting your time. I'm gonna cover the steps and what I'm doing. My intention isn't to teach this process because, like I said, it's not mine. If you are interested in finding out more, I learned this from Denise Duffield-Thomas. I'll put a link in the description to her website where you can find out more. And that's who I would learn it from. This is just an example of what I'm doing. Yeah, it's something I've wanted to talk about for a while, but I actually felt like a lot of hesitation. I thought people would be possibly put off by the revenue goal because it's a big number. It is. But then I thought, yeah, I'm gonna put it out there because part of the process is getting really specific about the number that you want, and I was like, well, if I make the video and don't actually talk about it, then that's not playing full out, right? And that's not really gonna get you anywhere. So I've used this before. It's a 5-step process, and I'll go over the 5 steps and what I'm doing for each one. And hopefully somebody finds this interesting. Step 1 is to declutter. And I think it's really important to do this one first. I feel like the other steps you can kind of mix and match around a little bit, sort of, to a certain extent. But I feel like this one absolutely has to come first. And I think the reason that you have to do this one first is because you need to free up some mental space. So decluttering, it could be physical decluttering, like if you have a closet that's just absolutely exploding with clothes and you're like, this is a situation and I need to deal with it, then yeah, that's a great project to tackle. It could be digital decluttering. That's actually what I'm gonna be doing. I've been using my partner's old laptop, which is still set up with all of his stuff. So there's like a lot of files and apps and stuff that like I never use, and they're just taking up a lot of real estate on the screen, and I prefer like a more minimalistic, like aesthetic work environment. So being that I am working on a goal for my business and I use my laptop for my business, I thought, well, hey, this is a good opportunity. So I'm gonna clean that up and get it looking nice. And I think the spirit, the intention behind doing the decluttering first is to just really like free up that mental real estate that you can then redirect towards whatever your goal is. It's actually my favorite part. I really like doing it. I am gonna do a little bit of physical decluttering. There's just some recycling that needs to get taken downstairs, and I've got some dishes that need to be put away, a few small things like that. Then I'm gonna do the laptop thing, and I'm excited about that. I think that'll be fun. I get to learn a new skill, and learning is my favorite. I don't know if you've ever taken one of those like skills assessment tests. I did one a couple years ago called the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and it was like number one skill by like a huge margin was learning, and I'm like, yeah, that tracks. All of my skills were in like learning and data analysis, and I had almost nothing in relationship building, and I was like, But you know, it's good to know these things about yourself. So the second part is to get really specific about what your goal is. And this is important too because there's some pitfalls potentially. For example, my goal is I want my business to get to $100,000 in revenue consistently per month. But caveat, I want it to be that revenue to be free and clear. So for example, I don't want to get approved for like a bank loan for $100,000. Or I don't want to have an investor put $100,000 into my business, but for a 20% piece, right? Something like that, just because both of those come with strings attached. So when I say free and clear, I just want that money to come into my business's bank account, and then it belongs to the company at that point. I don't have to pay it back to anybody or anything like that. It's important to get those little details down because sometimes the universe is like, here you go, and you're like, no, that's not what I wanted, and they're like, you didn't specify. So you have to specify. The other thing I want to specify and be clear about is that I want it to be from our largely passive affiliate marketing sources. So that means I don't want to have to like do, for example, like client work. I don't want to build a website for $100,000. I do not have the time for that. So to reiterate, recapping, we want $100,000 per month consistently. We want that by the end of September. We want it free and clear, so no strings attached. And I would like it to all be from passive income sources. So that could include stuff like investment revenue, like past due invoices coming in, because I still have a couple of those outstanding somehow, even though I haven't done client work in a very long time. Just stuff like that. Like, you never know. Like, sometimes it's interesting when you start this process. Sometimes without you even asking, someone will come up and be like, oh, hey, remember that like $2,000 you loaned me like 20 years ago? Here you go. And you're like, I didn't even remember that. Like, you know, it's very interesting the things that start to happen when you do this. Anyways, I feel very clear. I feel like I've covered all my bases. I think. So we can move on to step 3 now. So step 3 is this is probably my second favorite step. I love the decluttering. That one's very like, yes, feels good to me. And then step 3 is anchoring. And I didn't fully understand this one at first, but what it is essentially you're putting little anchor points to your goal all around you. And this can be a variety of different things. So obviously a lot of it can be like visual, like putting up like little post-it notes as little reminders. You write out what your goal is with all the specifics. Don't skip it. Always be specific. And then when you see them, it brings back, you're like, oh right, yes, that's my goal. Just keeps your brain on task, because your brain does do stuff like in the background, like while you're sleeping or while you're doing kind of like monotonous tasks, like if you're walking somewhere or like washing your hair or whatnot. It's always running programs in the background. So by keeping that goal top of mind, it's keeps your brain working on it. So, you know, you might notice opportunities, or you might think of a new idea without even really trying, which is pretty cool. Anchors can also be stuff like scents. So maybe there's like a perfume that you put on that when you smell it, it makes you feel fancy, or the first time you put it on, you really like visualized what it would be like to achieve that goal. And, you know, you felt really excited about it. You got the intensity of the emotion. I actually like to do that with scented candles. So whenever I have a goal I'm working on, I always have a scented candle that goes with it. Because I'm a white woman. I have a candle for this one. It's called Kyoto Forest, but the scent is like vanilla, milk, and sandalwood, which I was skeptical. I hear you. I was skeptical too, but then I smelled it and was like, that smells delicious. Like, yes. I don't know that it smells like a forest in Kyoto, but it does smell good. So I'm using that for this goal. Now, you can use like your scent goals, for example, manifest like a new home. Not everyone's like me. Not everyone's like, home ownership, oh God. So let's say, yeah, that's your goal. You want to manifest a new house. So whenever you're looking through the listings on the MLS or whatever, you can burn that candle and smell it. And when you see houses that you really like, really try to like stop for a moment, you know, really smell the candle or the perfume or the diffuser, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Really just like internalize the feelings of like, what would it feel like to live in that house? Like, how would you feel waking up there every morning, right? If it's like a work goal, you can obviously like burn a candle while you're working, as long as that's allowed. I am currently working in a co-working space and I do not think they would be okay with that. So I'm not gonna do that. What I am gonna do is I'm gonna burn it while I'm doing like my weekly refresh, which is a form of decluttering, when I just, you know, go over the condo, you know, take down the garbage, take down the recycling, clean everything off, do my laundry, all that kind of stuff. I also like to burn it while I'm having a bath and relaxing at the end of the night, because I do tend to go over the day as like a mental checklist and be like, what did I work on? Was it important? What should I prioritize for tomorrow, right? Scent's like a very powerful trigger for memory. So I think specifically anchoring your goal to a scent is just really helpful, because it's just like in a second will bring it to the top of your mind. Also, it's just nice to have nice smells around you. There's a reason why fancy hotels pump them in and get their own signature scents made. It's because it works. And in addition to the post-it notes that I'm going to put around the house, condo, still getting used to that, I'm going to make the background on my laptop have my goal, as well as like the lock screen. And I'm also just going to make everything like match. I want things to look very aesthetic. Now that I've cleaned up all of the files and the desktop and everything's ready, it's a blank canvas at this point, so I'm gonna make it look nice. But yeah, I think that should be good. I think that should be enough. Having the reminders on my laptop, I think, will be really important, because that's where I do my work. Having some post-its around the house, and then using my candle. I think those will be good. Okay, so step 4 is to actually take action. And here's the thing, you might be like, why is this step 4? Shouldn't this be step 1? And I think the first 3 steps are really just about getting your mindset in the right place. You know, you do the decluttering, you get rid of, you know, at least 1 or 2 little things that were kind of bugging you and taking up space back there. You free up some space. You make room for abundance. You get very specific on what it is you want with all the little caveats. You don't be like, I want more money. And the universe is like, okay, here's $2. Problem solved. Another great day of work by the universe. And then you set up your anchors. So have you ever had this experience where you're like set a goal and you're like really excited about it, and like the first couple of days, like you're going, you're doing it, and then 2 weeks later you like find a note and you're like, oh yeah, there's that thing I was gonna do. And I was like really hyped about it. Like, what happened there? And it's just, I think it's just a normal thing that happens. You just start to forget because there's so many other things that need your attention during the day. So if you don't proactively set up little reminders for yourself about like what it is you actually want to be focusing on, it just sort of starts to slip away. And I don't think that that means you're bad at achieving goals or lazy or anything. I think it's just, that's just how brains be, you know? So that's fine though. If we know how they are, we can take steps. So the third step, setting up all those anchors, I think is very important. And like these things don't have to take a long time. Like I'm doing all of this in an evening. So then finally, I would actually do stuff, because here's the thing. Some people think that manifesting is just being like, okay, universe, I want a successful business and more money. And then they just wait, and that's it. That doesn't work. You have to actually do stuff. The lady who teaches this process, Denise Duffield-Thomas, she says you have to meet the universe halfway, and I think that just makes sense to me. So for me, what I'm gonna do is, it's Thursday evening right now. I have one more day of work tomorrow, and then I'll be off for the weekend. First of all, I'm gonna prep everything for tomorrow. I usually just get my gym clothes set out. I get my work clothes packed into my bag because I go to the gym first, then I go to work. I have an orange I'm gonna bring for a snack tomorrow, but they don't have a knife there, so I'm gonna chop that up. I'll set up the coffee for the morning, and then I'm also gonna make a checklist of what are the most important tasks for me to get done tomorrow to move towards my goal. So for right now, that's mostly just updating pages and making new ones. We get most of our income from our coupon websites right now. Just working on improving those pages so that they rank better in Google and making new ones that are new opportunities for making money. As of right now, that's my task. So figuring out how to do that efficiently and get as many done as possible while still keeping them high quality, that's what I gotta work on for now. I do also need to keep on top of the results I'm getting and interpret the data that's coming back. Yeah, so for tomorrow, I'm gonna basically get everything prepped to go to work. So that is gym clothes, work clothes, snacks, very important. Oh, I have to make rice too. We're out of rice. And then making my checklist. And then tomorrow, going hard on the checklist. I know some people don't like to use a checklist as a time management system, and I don't use it as a time management system, but in terms of just getting stuff done, like, I love a checklist. Checking an item off, that little dopamine hit is like, mwah, yes. It works for me. I appreciate that it doesn't work for everyone. Okay, and the very last step, step 5, is to be open to receiving. So this can take a bunch of different forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be money, although it can. So for example, I've got some invoices I need to chase up. One's from a vendor we work with, and one is from a client. And I don't even do client work anymore. How do I have an outstanding invoice? I'm going to graciously accept any compliments that come my way. And this is not me fishing, but that's a form of receiving, and it's something that we do tend to deflect. When you're like, walk into the office and somebody's like, oh, that's a cute dress. I don't know, I found this in the garbage. No, and I don't know why we do that, but we're gonna stop doing that. And we're gonna be like, thank you. That's so kind of you to say. It can be things like, you know, if you go to get your hair done or you go somewhere and you have to wait for a bit and they're like, oh, would you like a tea or coffee or some water? Say yes. If you're walking through the grocery store and somebody's handing out free samples, take a free sample. It's not so much like what I'm going to do with whatever I receive, because sometimes people will be like, well, I received like a voucher for like a free movie, but how does that help me with my income? And it's less about specifically receiving things that are going to help you towards your goal, although it could be more about like the energy and the intention of accepting the things, the gifts that the universe is sending your way. Because if you give something to somebody and they're like, oh, thanks, and then they just like throw it in the trash, you're like, oh, it doesn't feel very good, right? Whereas if they're like, oh, wow, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Then even if they go home and then they just kind of put it away and they're like, oh, I'm never going to use that, you still feel nice. And I think, we got to consider the universe's feelings. This one can be hard. It's not something I was always good at. Hence why I have outstanding client invoices. But I'm working on it. We're growing. We're getting better. That's the whole point. So yeah, that's the process. That's the whole thing. I'd encourage you to try it. If you're at all curious, give it a go. You can go to Denise's website and find out more. It's free. She doesn't charge anything for it. There's like a free PDF you can download, and she does a challenge in January totally for free every year. In fact, she gives away money on that challenge. And it's just fun. It's just fun. Why not try it? See what happens. You never know. It's really interesting when you start to put yourself out there and worry less about like, oh gosh, like what if it doesn't work, or what if other people think it's weird or whatever. When you let go of all that stuff, really interesting things start to happen. So I would encourage you to try. I'm excited to see where this goes. It's a big goal. It's a big number. It's an aggressive number for my business, but why not put it out there? Why not go for the big number, I mean, if it's like, oh no, I only made like 50% of my goal, well, still 50% of that ahead of where I used to be, so not too shabby. Still a win. Sometimes our timelines are just off. Sometimes we set a really aggressive timeline, and then it's like, you're gonna get there, but it's just gonna take you like an extra couple months. No big deal. If you've ever done any manifesting, I would love to hear about it. I'm always just really interested to hear other people's experiences with it, because I don't know, I just think it's so fascinating. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I'll keep you posted.